Everyone, it seems, wants to be an author, and today we are meeting a real-life author, Jamie Zeppa. She is author of her first book, Every Time We Say Goodbye. It's a novel. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thank you for having me.
So you've accomplished a real great goal, and that is to finish writing a book and get it published.
Yes.
And you're visiting Sault Ste. Marie today. You'll be at the public library.
That's right, at 6:30.
That's so exciting. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write this book.
Well, in some ways it's a traditional first novel in that it's semi-autobiographical. In the novel, there's a character who discovers he's adopted when he's about 14, and that really did happen to my dad. I grew up with my grandparents, as some of the characters in the book do. So I drew on real life things, but it's also very much fiction.
Great. So they often say start with what you know, because
Yes.
it's a great skeleton to then put other things on.
That's right.
Wonderful.
That's right.
Now, you're originally from the Sioux, now living in Toronto. Did your upbringing come into play when you were writing the novel?
Well, it's set in Sault Ste. Marie, and anyone who's read it who knows the Sioux says, oh, I could really feel like I was back in Sault Ste. Marie. So I think my upbringing is very much a part of it, and when I think of fiction, I often, in my mind, return to the Sioux. So I'm working on a second novel now, which will also be set in Sault Ste. Marie. I think it's a good place to write about.
Good. Have you always written?
I have. I kept journals, which are, terribly embarrassing to read now.
You see how much you've grown.
Exactly. I wanted to be a writer from the time I read Harriet the Spy when I was maybe in grade 5.
Good for you. And now you're a teacher. Do you teach writing in English?
I teach at a college, so I teach literature courses, and there is a writing component. Yes.
Good, good. So you're inspiring others to
Yes.
follow that passion.
Well, the good thing about teaching is that the feedback's immediate. So when you have a good class, you know you've had a good class.
Yes.
Writing is kind of solitary. You write a chapter, you don't know if it's good.
That's right.
Maybe a week later you think that's not such a good chapter, but with teaching it's immediately gratifying.
So it's good you have that nice balance
It's a
in your
good
life.
balance, yes.
When you were looking for a place to publish your book, how did you come in contact with Random House of Canada?
Well, I'm very fortunate to have an agent, and she sold the book to Random House. My first book was published by Doubleday, which is also under the Random House imprint, and it was a memoir about my time teaching in Bhutan. So I think having published a memoir first made the novel a bit easier to sell.
And that's still available as well?
It is, yes.
Good.
Yes.
So your books are available on Amazon?
Yes.
And here in Sault Ste. Marie at Coles?
Yes.
Good. Is it great to be back in your hometown and have that as part of the circuit that you're doing?
It feels fantastic to be back in my hometown, especially since Sault Ste. Marie is such a part of the book.
Yes, and that is very special. You had been working on the book for how long before you were able to part with it and get it published?
Okay, a very long time, maybe 8 to 10 years.
And you kept at it?
I kept at it. Now, that's not full-time writing because I was
Right.
teaching full-time. So in, summer break and winter break, I'd work at it. I'd work at it and then I'd feel discouraged and think, oh, maybe I just can't write a novel. And then something kept pulling me back to it. So I'd, open it up again and think, no, this is a pretty good story. And I'm glad I kept at it because now it's out there.
And how did you come to that point of completion, to saying to an agent, you know what, here it is, go sell it for me?
It took a long time. I gave her an earlier draft. She wasn't happy with the ending. And that, for me, was the hardest part, how to tie everything together.
Yes.
And I think from now on, what I will do when I start a novel is I will know how it ends. Some writers, they tell you, I had no idea. The characters just took me there. Well, my characters are pretty lazy. They just lay there on the page
They
waiting.
sat around and
They
said,
did.
do something?
Exactly. Can you think of an ending for us? So eventually I did.
And so you changed your ending from the original?
I did change the ending. And then when I got to this ending, I thought, okay, now I feel like I can give it over.
Does your next book follow this as a sequel, or is it something completely different?
It's something completely different. It's about bootleggers in Sault Ste. Marie in the 1920s.
Fascinating.
And that's not autobiographical,
That's
unless
neat.
my family's not telling me something.
Some of those skeletons
That's
in the
right.
closet that make things exciting. And you will use some historical information when you do this?
Absolutely. So I've been to the public library in the Sioux a couple of times, especially looking at old Sioux stars, which that's really a valuable source of information.
How
and I've
neat.
talked to people.
Good.
So, and if people have stories of that time, I'd be delighted to talk to them.
That's great. And how can they contact you,
They
Jamie?
can contact me through my website, which is jamiezeppa.com.
Okay.
And I would love to hear people's stories of, they call them bootleggers, but they were just people selling whiskey out of their homes.
I see. Trying to
Do
their own thing.
Exactly, make
Yes.
ends meet.
Be entrepreneurial.
That's right.
And was it illegal to do that, though?
It was during Prohibition, and even
Okay.
after it was illegal.
So we had Prohibition in Canada.
Yes, we did.
There
Yes,
you
we did. And
go.
with the states just next door, there was a lot of rum running across that river.
Okay. Rum running like
Yes.
pirates.
Yes, so
Wow.
interesting.
Fascinating. fascinating. So if you had a piece of advice to those that are wanting to be writers or have that call, what would you give to them as advice?
I would say read as much as possible, and read the things that you're drawn to as a reader. I would say try and write that first. So when I was starting this novel, I thought, now what kind of book do I really like to read? I really like to read about families where there's a bit of a mystery and it's set over generations. So I think if you write what you love, you'll have a better chance of finishing it. And the second piece of advice I have is to use a pencil. And I don't mean literally use a pencil, you can type it up, but be prepared to do many drafts.
Okay, great advice. And we so thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
And coming back to the Sioux and letting this community be an inspiration for your work.
Well, I think it will continue to be.
That's wonderful. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We've been talking to Jamie Zeppa. She is author of the novel Every Time We Say Goodbye. It is published by Random House of Canada, and it's available at Amazon.com and also at Kohl's here in Sault Ste. Marie. Thanks for joining us today here on Local 2.